Hi everybody, Dan John here from danjohnuniversity.com. We had a question come in on the podcast and I didn't know how to answer it really. But we are working on a whole course for this. It's called Easy Strength for, the elite athletes. Well, the follow-up question always comes up is, how do I train elite athletes? So I made a few notes. The first thing when you're training elite athletes is that you've really got to deal with the whole person at first. And sometimes you hear the word athleticism. It's an almost impossible thing to define, but by God, you know it when you see it. So one of the first things I always think about is, what can we do to help this person be a better athlete? And that's why I still believe in general training, or whatever we're going to call it this month. We were calling it GPP for a couple of years. Remember that? And then we stopped doing it. When I was young, we called it the off season. That's when you played other sports. But, it's that whole you know it when you see it thing with athletes. I still believe that if you're a basketball player, playing soccer is going to teach you the triangles. That's going to make you a better basketball player. And also, too, like if you're a soccer player, you ought to play the game like rugby so you don't embarrass yourself when someone elbows you and you have to lay on the ground screaming for 5 minutes. God, that gets old fast. The thing is this, first and foremost, is that when I am training an athlete, there's two big things I'm working on. Let's go through the one I don't explain well enough. But when you have an elite athlete who's young, still got the six-pack abs, still got it going on, when their foot hits the ground, good old Coach Newton, action, boom, and the reaction is boom. So it's boom, hit the ground, boom, they leap up and they break their tooth like I did on a basketball hoop. When you throw, you boom, and everything just goes into the implement, okay? When you boom, everything goes into the implement. As the athlete ages, or as the athlete has a few too many beers and stuff in the off season, when they go boom, the body goes boom, boom. And so superior athletic ability very often is the ability to stay stable under the hits of performance. My favorite ways of building this up in training is pretty simple. It can be as simple as grabbing a kettlebell and marching in place, because every step I take is putting huge demands on my stabilizing system. My good friend Stu McGill talks about how the suitcase carry, which I'm demonstrating right now, is an amazing exercise for overall athletic performance. In fact, right behind me on this wall, right here, is my article on the suitcase carry. When I named it the suitcase carry, probably 20 years ago, before that guy on T-Nation invented it, after I invented it, which this person seems to be doing a lot of inventing in my work. Though you know me, who cares? I've only mentioned it a million times. Waiter walks are really good for that kind of thing. We're gonna, a lot of people say, well, that's your core. Well, it's core, but it's core in movement. And that's why I think off-season training, doing things like hill sprints and stuff like that, or running through forests can be such a good, valuable preseason condition, playing games and sports. Because when we're playing games and sports, when someone pushes me while I'm trying to make a layup, or someone, gives me a little elbow, I'm teaching my body that stiffness that you need. So when I come around and throw the discus, when I block here, instead of my body going, it all goes into the implement. That's principle number one, stability. That's the number one thing I strive for when I first work with an elite athlete. How stable, how strong. It's interesting because very often I take them back to goblet squats and overhead squats with sticks, because that's what they need. And of course, number two is a phrase I invented, snapacity. It's snap, combined with work capacity. You shove snap, which is the ability to stretch reflex the body, stretch reflex the body, stretch reflex the body as fast as you can over and over and over again. And then of course there's this thing we call work capacity. And I want my athletes to take 500 good throws a day with snap, but I want them to be able to handle the 500 throws. So I combine snap with work capacity, snapacity. Well, how do you build snap? That's the whole hinge family. So that's your deadlift, your cleans, your snatches, with kettlebells, with dumbbells, with Olympic bars, with whatever. That builds up the snap. You combine that with things like pushing prowlers, sled drags, heavy bag carries, any of the loaded carry family, and again, hill sprints, which are amazing. I got to tell you, bear hug carries and hill sprints might be a perfect training program if you can only do two things. So when people ask me about training elite athletes, and I am going to have a course on danjohnuniversity.com about this, but really it's going to come down to those two things. And that's why I like the easy strength approach to building the elite athlete, because we're getting them strong in the weight room. We're connecting this side with, you know, the right shoulder to the left hip, the left shoulder to the right hip. Well, that's going to be it for this one. Folks, thank you so much. I'm Dan John from danjohnuniversity.com.